We already know the git init command, which allows us to create our own new repository. However, you will very often copy, or how it's supposed to be said, clone another repository. And we will use our book repository in this example. We have our book folder right here, which has our book workspace and our Git repository in it. And we are going to clone it. As you can see right now, we are in our Git folder in our Explorer, where we have our book folder. And that's exactly where we are in our PowerShell. It's our Git folder. So now what we want to do is to put Git Clone command and the name of the repository we want to clone. In our case, it will be book. And now we have to type the name of our cloned repository. For example, let's call it book 2. Let's hit enter. You can see this information in PowerShell where we have cloning into book 2 and the information it's done. And you can see the effect in our file explorer where we have our book folder and our book 2 folder. We can go to this folder now and you can see it's the same repository, the same cloned one from our book folder. So that is cloning the local repository. But more often you will clone a remote repository from GitHub, such as for example, this one right here. We will talk about GitHub later on, so I won't get into it right now. But even now you can see some info about this repository. You can see we have some folders here, some files right here. We have 94 commits made in this repository. We have 4 branches of this project. We are at the branch master, so it's kind of similar to what we have seen already. We can also see the description of this repository, so it's a sort of a documentation for it. But what we want to do right now is to click this code button right here. We want to clone this repository by HTTPS, which you can see right here. It's already highlighted by default. And all we need to do right now is to copy this link right here. You can click on this button on the right side of it to copy it to the clipboard, or you can select it, click the rightmost button and copy it. Now let's go back to our PowerShell, and what we want to do is to type Git Clone and paste the link to our remote repository, just like this. As you can see, it's the same as cloning our local repository, but instead of putting the name of the local repository we want to clone, we just paste the link to the remote repository we want to clone. Now after space, you can write the name of the folder where you want your repository to be cloned to. Or you can just press enter to clone this repository to your folder where you're at right now. And in our case, it's Git, which you can see right here and right here. So let's hit enter. We got this information about cloning the repository in PowerShell. And as you can see in my file explorer, this repository is already cloned to our hard drive. We can open this repository and you can see the same folders and files, which we could see on the GitHub platform. As you can see, we have also the hidden Git folder, which is the repository itself inside our working directory with the project right here. As a matter of fact, I would like to show you something inside this repository, which is this file right here. And it's a file without the name with the extension git ignore. Let's open it. And this is what we will get. This is the git ignore file. We will create this kind of file in this course as well. And this file shows which elements should be ignored by Git in our repository. So these elements are not being tracked. They are off our repository and they are only in our working directory. And we do this for many reasons. Some of the files can take a lot of space. Some of them are being created automatically, etc. But for now, let's forget about this git ignore file. We will go back to it later in this course. And now I would like to show you the example. how we can easily use what we cloned from GitHub. Let's go to our example folder, which you can see right here. Let's open this index.html file, and this is what we will get. It's a very nice slider, which we can, for example, modify and use on our website. Of course, before using it, we should read the license agreement first. But now let's close this. Let's close this GitHub window as well. And let's go to our newly cloned repository in our PowerShell. CD, and let's drag the folder to it. Let's hit enter. Let's open this repository in our file explorer as well. And let's check Git status of this repository. Let's forget about this line for now. I will tell you all about it later on. But now we can see familiar information. We are on a branch master. We have nothing to commit. Working tree is clean. So we have nothing in our staging area, and our working directory is the same as our repository at the moment. Now let's check another thing with git log one line. Let's hit enter, and here we can see the list of all the commits made in this repository. The list is quite long, so now when we press arrow down or arrow up, we can scroll this list, and you can see that even if now we are trying to type something, nothing is actually happening. So if we want to quit this list and be able to work in PowerShell once again, we have to press Q key on our keyboard. So let's do it. And now you can see everything got back to normal, and we can clear our console. We have all the commits available because cloning provides us the whole repository with its full history. If we want, we can go to any particular stage of the project and restore the file structure from that stage. We can also modify this repository however we want. And let's create a new file to prove it. So let's use echo command with anything in it. Let's call this file just file.txt. Let's hit enter. And you can already see in our file explorer that this file is already here. And we can check our git status to see it as well. We have one new untracked file, which is our file.txt. And now if we want, we can add it to the staging area, do a commit, and develop this repository further. We will come back with the topic of cooperation with GitHub and remote repository in this course. For now, we just got to know the git clone command as an alternative to the git init command. So it's just another way to create our local repository. We can clone it or create it from scratch. But now let's move on.